I know thinking about leaving corporate to start a solo consulting business can feel just completely overwhelming. There's this voice in your head that's telling you that there's like 1,001 things that you have to figure out before you can even think about starting to get going. But I want to show you that it's actually a lot simpler than you think. So today, I'm going to show you exactly how to take the skills that you already have, the ones that you've spent years building and honing inside of a company, and package those into an offer that clients are actually happy to pay for, all in 3 simple steps. So let's get into it. The first step is actually where most people go wrong before they even get started with their solo consulting business. When they think about creating a consulting offer, they tend to just kind of default to an extension of whatever job they're doing at the moment. So if they do marketing, they'll just call themselves like a marketing consultant. If they do strategy or HR, they'll be a strategy consultant, an HR consultant, just the same thing. They'll slap it on their LinkedIn headline and they'll put up a post and they'll just kind of leave it at that. And then they start to wonder why all these clients haven't shown up. But the consultants who actually succeed at this know something that most people don't. And that's that your resume and your offer are not the same thing. Now, they're going to be built from the same core skills, but the packaging needs to be completely different if you're trying to attract clients versus submitting your resume or your CV or whatever to try to land a job. The most successful solo consultants that I know don't build their offer around what they want to do or what looks the most impressive on LinkedIn. They build it around the place where their skills and their proven results, and here's the key, actual demand in the market all overlap. And that's really important because demand is what's going to dictate whether or not you get clients, not your preferences or what feels exciting or sexy for you to post on LinkedIn. So before you go any further, I want you to sit down and ask yourself a few questions. Just pause this video and respond. What problems have you already solved in your corporate role? I know there's got to be a ton. What are the tangible results that you've achieved? So that's stuff that you can kind of point to and say, hey, I did that. So in other words, what did you actually do that changed something in the business? Now, moving from being an employee to being a solo consultant is as much a psychological and kind of mindset change as anything else. And this next part is where a lot of smart, capable people get tripped up. So when a company hires an employee, they're basically hiring a combination of things. So your experience, your judgment, your potential, and how well you fit into their culture, their organization, their workflow. It's a pretty broad kind of brief. But when a buyer, a client, hires a solo consultant, they're hiring almost entirely based on one thing, and that's whether or not you can solve their very, very specific problem. That's really going to be your whole pitch at the end of the day. So most people will package their consulting offer around their corporate experience. So they'll say things like, I have 12 years in operations, or I led a team of 30 people at Nike. Like, that's resume stuff. Okay, it's nothing wrong with it. It's really impressive, but that's resume language. And clients are not looking to buy a resume from you. They're not hiring you, right? They're paying you to have their very specific problem solved. So you need to flip the way that you're talking about yourself and your skills. So start by asking yourself a few questions. First, what problem were you actually solving in your corporate role? Not what your job title was, but what were the real problem or problems sitting underneath it that you were in charge of solving? Who else outside of your company has that same exact problem? And then this is the big one. How would that buyer, that client, describe the problem in their own words, not your words, not jargon, their exact words? That's the language that your offer needs to use. This next step is the one I would say 99% of people skip, which is crazy to me because it can save you months or years of your life and thousands of dollars of your savings. Your offer as a solo consultant does not need to be original. I really want you to understand this and think about it for a second because I see so many talented, experienced people fall into this trap. I fell into this trap at first. They think that their first offer has to be like groundbreaking or innovative or something nobody's ever thought of before, but it really, really doesn't. It should be the opposite, in fact. Your first offer has one job, and that is to get cash and clients coming through the door regularly. It is so much easier to build the early years of your business around a reliable and like maybe slightly unsexy offer than it is to launch something that is totally original and unique right out of the gate and then try to like pivot later if it flops. Now, that doesn't mean doing something that you hate. I want to be really clear about that. Or doing something that you don't enjoy. But there's almost always a middle ground between what you genuinely enjoy doing and what the market is asking for. So how do you find that middle ground? Well, you test for it. Now, there's a bunch of ways that you can test and validate an offer, and I go a lot deeper on my favorite scripts and templates for this inside of my programs, but the simplest, most effective method is this. Write your offer up in a plain Google document, okay? Not a polished pitch deck or some fancy PowerPoint, just an easy to share, easy to scan document. The important part is getting it in front of people who could actually potentially buy it or who work in the industry with people who would buy your offer. And I want to be really clear about this. This is not a cold pitch. You're not asking them to buy right then and there. This is a conversation that's going to help you refine and validate whether or not your offer is something that will sell. And here's something that really tends to surprise people when I tell them, you don't actually need like a fancy setup to sell. Now, I personally sold multiple 6 figures worth of consulting projects straight out of Google Docs. As you grow, like sure, things are gonna get more polished and you'll have your PowerPoint decks and all of that, but your first offer is different. Its whole job is to validate if this is something that can actually sustain you as a solo consultant. So it needs to move really quick, it needs to be a little rough and ready, it needs to get real feedback from real people, and then you're gonna take that feedback and refine that offer until it's airtight before you start to build all this fancy stuff around it. This exact process, turning your skills into a validated offer, getting your first client, and building a business model that brings in consistent, premium paying clients without cold email or like posting on LinkedIn all the time. That's what I walk you through step by step in my program, Chief Business Co-Pilot Employee to Consultant. It's a 16-week program where I give you my solo consulting blueprint, built specifically for people leaving corporate to become solo consultants. I'd love to have you in the next cohort. You can learn more about the program and apply to take part at employee2consultant.com. And hey, if this video is helping you see things a little bit more clearly, I'd really appreciate it if you did me a favor and hit like and subscribe. It genuinely helps the channel reach more people who are stuck exactly where you were stuck just a few minutes ago. Now that you've gotten a validated offer, the next question is pretty obvious, right? How do you actually land your very first paying client? Well, that's exactly what I cover in this video right here. You're gonna get your first client as a solo consultant this year, and I'm gonna help you do it. I'm Jen Kleinhens, and I'll see you in the next one.